It really dealt with the human condition and happened to be sci-fi, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The scene we skipped has to do with the storyline, but it didn't have to do with Data's storyline. So, if you were watching it and you're like, wait, I didn't think that happened then, that's fine. It's natural. We have Captain's Log, and this is stardate 46984.6, and that equates to Thursday, September 4th, 2369, and it's about 9:59:58 a.m.
Almost 10 a.m.
Yes.
2 seconds away.
It's few minutes and seconds away from, 24 hours after their last Captain's Log.
At least he's consistent.
Oh, sure.
There you go.
Yeah. So, we have Admiral Ilana Nechayev. I could not remember her. So, she comes in. She's on the USS Gorkin, and she assigns the Enterprise to head a 3-ship contingent. There's going to be 15-ship task force in this sector, and their 3 ships are going to be the Enterprise, of course, the USS Crazy Horse, and the USS Agamemnon. And USS Crazy Horse is the first time we have a Star Trek ship named after a Native American, which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then I just remember Agamemnon from my history books. And Nechayev kind of berates Picard because he sent Hugh back to the collective. And, obviously they're thinking, oh, it's Hugh that did this. It's his fault, and Picard's the one that let him go back without giving that disease to everyone else. So quick note, Dan, do you know that episode by any chance?
I was planning on interrupting you actually because I assume that there is a full-on episode where we learn about Hugh.
Yes. It's called I, Borg, and we have a Borg that they pick up and they bring back to health. He realizes that everyone else has names, and then he starts to sort of come into his own, and he's like, oh, do I have a name? And then they come up with Hugh as his name. And so he starts, using his own pronouns and not being part of the collective. And they were going to put a virus or something in his programming so that when he went back and then shared it with everyone, they would all die. So basically, it was genocide. That's the one where Captain Picard was racist for a second because he was going to commit genocide.
He was down with some good old-fashioned genocide, huh?
Right.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one because it seems like obviously it's playing into this one here, but I found Hugh to be a very interesting character, so I can't wait to get to that one.
Yeah, and we saw him in one of the Picard trailers, or was he in both of them, Rebecca? I know it was one for sure.
He was in for sure the second one, and I don't recall seeing him in the first one. He may have had a flash in that first one.
If I don't remember it either, he must not have really been full front. Yeah. Oh, that just sounded dirty. Sorry, he must not have been like in the forefront or something in a scene in the first.
So Dan, we're recording this in the future, but we will be releasing an episode that we did about iBorg, which is the episode that we're talking about. So you can certainly skip ahead if you like to in your rewatch. Watch that episode and then listen to our recap. We talk a little bit about that episode.
I will. And it's safe to say that, to some degree, I can jump around a little bit, right? Like, I know it's a serial and everything, but you can jump around and
there's not, this version of Star Trek does not have overarching stories. Yeah. Deep Space Nine has overarching stories, so if you jump around too much, you probably get a little lost. But with Next Generation, while they do make references to previous stuff, it's all stuff you could Google, look up on Memory Alpha, which is the Star Trek fan site, and it'll give you sort of the back catalog of characters.
Yeah,
cool.
Memory Alpha is like the wiki, so before recording, you said that you like Star Wars. If you've ever got on Wikipedia, it's the same sort of thing, only for Star Trek.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, we're doing 2 episodes a night now, so maybe I'll make iBorg one of those. iBorg, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, iBorg. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Oh, awesome.
I'm down. Gonna watch it.
Yeah, it's like season 5 or something, maybe.
Yeah, right around there.
There's a lot of Borg.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say there's a lot of Borg-centric episodes in this recap because in Picard, we see Hugh in one of the trailers, but also 7 of 9 is going to be a fairly prominent character, and she had been a Borg. I don't know if you know much about her, Dan, but...
No, I know who she is.
Okay. I was going to say, Rebecca could probably tell you a little more than I can, because I didn't watch that iteration,
Yeah, she was on Voyager.
Yep.
But just a quick note about Admiral Nechayev. We do see her in a couple of episodes throughout Next Generation. The reason why we see her fairly frequently is that she is Captain Picard's direct superior. And so he basically reports to her, and she is very tough.
I thought you were going to say it was because she was like the actress was someone's wife.
So she was available. I don't think so. I don't think she was like...
No,
I don't think so. She's very tough. And one of the reasons I think why she is so tough is because she worked with the Cardassians to establish that first treaty that ended the Federation Cardassian War. So she has been around. She has had to deal with a lot of really tough, difficult, I would go as far as to say as toxic masculinity as portrayed by the Cardassians. And so she and Picard do not always have a great relationship. In fact, there's an episode earlier on where she comes to the Enterprise and he's quite nervous because it's like, your boss is coming and he like puts out special tea for her. He finds out what her favorite food is.
I forgot about that.
Ready. And at first she's like, all right, down to business. And then she's like, oh, you made that thing I like. And it really, it changes her. She kind of softens up a little bit, but I kind of like her character because she's a woman who's had to deal with a lot of stuff and it's made her tough. And I like that about her because she's not defined by anything other than she is a tough as nails admiral.
I totally agree with you. I wrote in my notes, everyone, that she's a ball buster, as they say. I didn't put quotes around it, but I should have. And I said, no wonder she got this far because she has really worked very hard and she's had to be no nonsense because you can't, as a woman, it's a little harder to have too much compassion to be in like a place of power like that, I think. Especially like in the 90s, it definitely would have been a thing. And, even though they're supposed to be in the future, they're still kind of relying on some of the 90s cultural aspects.
Sure. But, future setting, 90s writing.
Yeah. And I said that I stan her assertiveness because I have a hard time being assertive sometimes. So I like her. And with that other episode that Rebecca mentioned, it's really great because it shows that she is a person and that she's not just like a one-dimensional, angry, mean boss or whatever. She can be like a real person and be like personable and soft and, Yeah,
it's good to know they fleshed that character out.
Yeah. So, she's got dimensions. Even if you, so if you only see her in this episode, no, she has other dimensions because she's a little angry in this. So Picard says that he was ethically compelled to respect Hugh's wishes of going back to the Borg, being normal. Not, he wanted to stay, but he didn't want to stay. That's part of the whole thing. And he decided he had to go because he didn't want anybody else to get hurt in that episode. I'm sorry I'm giving you any spoilers, Dan, but it's still a good episode.
No, we're good.
Well, I also think, too, like, if Hugh had not gained individuality, if he remained a mindless drone of, we are the Borg, you will be assimilated. If he remained that way, Picard would have had zero problem sending him back with a virus to kill the entire collective. Because it's easy to kill a thing that doesn't seem to be really alive. It's really easy. And so once Hugh began to show that he was an individual and he started using pronouns like I, me, now it becomes harder because now you are taking a person who is conscious of who they are and you are going to use them as a pawn as a weapon of mass destruction. And this scene is a great scene because Picard is like standing up for his morality, and Nechayev is like, I don't give a you-know-what about your morality. You need to put your morality on the back burner and do what you got to do to defeat this enemy.
I think this kind of shows how her superiors are probably breathing down her neck that all of these, people were killed and all this stuff is happening. So she's got to tell him, this is what we have to do, and we have to do it by the book. You can't throw in this ethics right now because the rest of them are killers, kind of thing. And these, even though they have their own sort of individuality now, they are definitely killers, and even worse than just assimilating people. They're actually just out there murdering people. It also shows that she doesn't necessarily do that to him very often because, let's face it, Picard does all kinds of stuff. He does some crazy stuff sometimes. He gets away with it because it usually ends up being for the greater good. Not this time, I guess. The scene that's after we see Data talking to Troy in her office, we have a supplemental captain's log, so no star dates for us, so we just assume it's still the same day. They've been on patrol for 16 hours, and there haven't been any more Borg encounters. But the tension is still pretty high on board, obviously. The New Berlin colony calls in an attack, a false alarm. They were like, oh, never mind. And during all this time...
Wasn't it like the third one that day?
Yeah, something. They'd had... That's the only one we know of for sure.
I do like how Picard tells Worf, he's like, transmit another copy of Starfleet's regulations about ship identification and tell them to read it this time. Like, he's so angry.
No time for this.
Picard gets kind of like snappy and annoyed a lot in this episode. It's kind of funny because he's always so cool and collected with things. So the meantime, they've been hanging out on their patrol for all these hours, and they've done an analysis of the subspace distortion. It's revealed as an artificially created energy conduit, which then they label transwarp conduit. Picard goes into his ready room and he's reviewing some of the video of Hugh and getting all sort of melancholy, and Riker comes in. Picard expresses to Riker that he might have some second thoughts and some regrets about letting Hugh go back without destroying the rest of the Borg, because if he had known this would happen, all these people would die and all this kind of stuff would happen, then he would have never let that happen. He just Riker tells him it was the moral thing to do, but Picard's still sort of conflicted about it. He could have been, it was like it was an opportunity to destroy the whole collective, but so that would have kept them from assimilating more people and all that kind of thing, but it would be genocide. And then he seemed to be more of a person. He wasn't like a toaster, he wasn't like your computer home network, hooked up to your refrigerator and all that stuff that can be connected to the internet now. He wasn't one of those anymore. He was actual individual, and he's got all these conflicting feelings, and Riker's just trying to be like, well, it's okay, don't, he's trying to talk to him, and then he goes, I don't want excuses, number one, I want answers. It's like, wow.
Someone's barky today.
Yeah, right? Like, he just went from like sad about things to jumping down Riker's throat there. So, but it's just because, like I said, he's conflicted. Like Data, he's having feelings he's having to deal with. Maybe that's the core of this.
Feelings. Everyone's got them.
It's a lot in one day.
Yeah.
So we go to the next scene, and Geordi walks in on Data in this holodeck simulation, and it's recreating the experience he had with the Borg on the outpost. And he was just coming by to see if Data wanted to come back to work or not, because Data's his best friend. Data likes to work. Maybe they need his help. I don't know. He's worried about him because they're friends. and